In the ongoing tale of there's two electric vehicle makers, there's Tesla and there's everyone else, Volkswagen Group is in really, really big trouble. Let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. First of all, a very, very quick aside here. This just sort of popped up as I was prepping the video for tomorrow. Anyway, it popped up just a few minutes ago, but if you see this, Brian, My Tesla Weekend, who's fantastic, you should definitely subscribe to him over on YouTube and follow him on X. He's amazing. He did a really, really wonderful video on Grok, and I wanted to do another Grok video today, but I've already done 2 in a row, so we're going to do something different today. Anyway, he did this video, and then there was a conversation in it about monetization on X, which is less than stellar at this point. And, anyway, I'll show you what I've got here, and I won't read through the whole thing, but basically I'm saying that, that the video searchability, the history, the work on it, the support for it by the X team has been a little bit lacking at this point. And to be clear, I'm very much in support of the X team. And I know that what they've been doing is triage and working on the stuff that they needed to for the company to survive. And then also, of course, working on the stuff that they needed to get images and text and searchability and AI and Grok and all of that stuff up and running, although XAI is its own separate little company. But anyway, they've had a ton of work to do. But it's still, there's more to be done on the video end of things. But the cool part was that, as you probably saw down here, Elon said absolutely to this. So cool. So thank you. Constructive criticism is always welcome. And I think he welcomes that. And so what I'm saying is here that I'm looking forward to X becoming a fantastic video platform. It won't happen immediately, but it is going to happen. And when it does evolve to that, it's going to get to be a very big competitor with YouTube, just like Grok is going to be a competitor to OpenAI and to Google, DeepMind, etc. So very exciting news. And by the way, I love this. I just happened to freeze frame on him like that. So kind of awesome. Anyway, so thanks to Brian and thanks to everybody. And speaking of thanks, a really big thanks to AJ. He was also on Rebellion Aire. If you don't know, that's a company that supports us, a lot of content creators. They're really, really wonderful. And thank you so much to Rebellion Aire. And if you want to check them out, it's just rebellionaire.com. Rebellion Aire calls themselves a maverick, risk-managing, concentrated investment master planner. So if you're interested, you can just check them out at rebellionaire.com. So anyway, a big thanks to AJ, who's part of that, for putting this all together. And of course to Claudia, my Patreon patron, and as I call her, my German office, for notifying me of AJ's post. So thank you to both of you. But before we get to that, I think it's important to look at this post from James Stevenson, who has graphically laid things out really well for us to see what I'm talking about when I say a tale of two EV manufacturers. And funnily enough, James is also one of the Rebellion Aire people. This is not intentional whatsoever. I'm not being paid for any of this stuff. They're just wonderful people. So thank you. And all the cool folks hang out with them, I guess. But anyway, this graphic shows very, very clearly, in California at least, that there's Tesla sales and there's everybody else. This is California sales cumulative through the end of Q3 of 2023. And you can see that Tesla basically just dominates. You take everybody else and maybe you could multiply them by like 3 to get there. So you can just very, very easily tell how many cars Tesla is selling versus the BEVs that everyone else is selling. And particularly look here that VW has sold 8,900 electric vehicles in 2023 year to date. And that doesn't even compete with BMW, which is a luxury brand. So that's pretty crazy that VW, a mass market car manufacturer, can't sell as many EVs as BMW, which is a luxury brand. So anyway, these numbers are really, really good looking for Tesla and really unfortunate looking for just about everybody else. All right, speaking of VW, let's move on to AJ's post here. There are 2 of them. He starts off with, this analysis of VW Group unveils why the company's recently announced hiring freeze in Germany was unavoidable and long overdue. VW Group's core brand, Volkswagen, is sick, very sick. This analysis of VW Group sheds light on the much-needed hiring freeze announced in Germany. Astonishingly, despite the conglomerate's reported operating profit of $22.8 billion over the last 12 months, a staggering 60% of that is attributed to Porsche and Audi brands alone. And those are their 2 kind of high-end luxury brands. So while certainly they're more profitable brands, they shouldn't probably be 60% of their profits. Anyway, continuing on, these brands, constituting 26% of VW Group's total vehicles sold, have emerged as the primary profit drivers. In stark contrast, the core VW brand, responsible for the majority of vehicles sold, 2.9 million or 49%, contributes a mere 2.5 billion or 11% to the profits. This discrepancy becomes even more apparent when examining the brand's profitability, standing at a paltry 2.7%. Youch. And the average operating profit per vehicle sold, a meager $839. These figures rank the VW brand at the bottom of VW Group's automotive segments and near the bottom of the entire automotive industry. And this is a really useful comparison here. To put this disparity into perspective, it takes the VW brand the sale of at least 25 vehicles to match the profit contribution from a single Porsche sale. A closer look at the VW brand's performance over the last 3 years reveals a consistent pattern of underperformance, with an aggregated profitability of 3.4%, 2.7% in the last 12 months, and a recent low of 2.4%, marking the third worst quarter in the past 3 years. And this tails in nicely with the VW CFO's statement in a leaked internal meeting or document that Volkswagen's roof is on fire, that they need to do something immediately. Things are in really, really big trouble. So if we take a look at this image, you can see the relative profit by different divisions of the VW group, and also note Cariad over here. This is $2.5 billion of losses, and we're going to get back to that in just 1 second. And then this image up here shows you VW Group's operating margin by automotive segment. So you can see Sport Utility and Porsche has a whopping 18.2% operating margin, while the VW Group as a whole has a much smaller than that at 6.8%. And even Audi, which is the other main luxury brand, only has 8.8% operating margin. So really, if you look at this, Porsche is kind of carrying the entire company right now, and that's a niche brand. They don't sell that many vehicles. And then of course, this really nice chart of their historical operating profitability minus third quarter of 21, where things were really completely nutty. You can see that they've averaged about 3.4% profitability, which is not fantastic, but like quarter 2 of 2022 was 7.3%, which started to look better, and it is kind of cyclical. But this latest third quarter of 2023 is only 2.4%, so that does not look good for Volkswagen going forward. And now let's turn to a discussion of Cariad. Cariad is the software wing of Volkswagen. They were supposed to project VW into the future and make them very highly competitive, replace the primitive software that operates their vehicles right now, and also help with full self-driving and all sorts of other things like that. It has been a complete boondoggle and a really, really big disaster. As AJ says, Cariad, the automotive software company under the VW Group umbrella, has proven to be a significant setback for the organization. Since its inception in 2020, which is just 3 years ago, it's just crazy, the company has incurred staggering losses, surpassing $5.5 billion. The situation remains dire, with quarterly losses exceeding $600 million. To put this in perspective, Cariad's operating margin for the last quarter plummeted to an alarming negative 296%, reflecting the company's financial woes. Even more concerning is the overall performance since its establishment, with a lifetime operating margin of negative 276%. These figures starkly highlight the hurdles the VW Group must overcome to attain greater independence from third-party software suppliers. The substantial losses incurred by Cariad serve as a poignant reminder of the complexities involved in achieving self-sufficiency in the realm of automotive software development. And this lovely graphic here really shows off what AJ's talking about. You can see that revenue has actually grown a little bit, but it's been very, very flat for the last couple of years. But the losses have just mounted and mounted and mounted. $5.5 billion for a company like VW that already has so much debt is an incredibly dangerous thing to be doing. So with that in mind, let's turn back to James's graphic here and look at VW sales in California, which of course is the most EV-friendly state in the United States, and so therefore a leading indicator of where the country is going, but also a decent indication of global demand. And of course, looking at this, you can see that VW is just not making sales there. They're not making sales in China. They're doing okay in Europe, but not fantastically either, considering that that's their home turf. So VW is suffering, and Cariad is a gigantic anchor on their earnings. But in order to become self-sufficient, what is VW going to do? Well, they're actually not going to become self-sufficient, it looks like. And here we get to some things that have been discussed by the Electric Viking, and I'll leave a link to one of his videos in the description so you can check it out. But he has talked specifically about how what he thinks is that VW is moving a lot of their manufacture to China now, in the sense of, I know that they sell cars in China and everything right now, but they're going to joint venture with a bunch of companies. They purchased a stake in Xpeng. They've also purchased a stake in Chinese Chinese battery manufacturers. So it looks like what they're going to do is, instead of actually pulling everything in-house and manufacturing their hardware and software in Germany at VW, they're going to actually do a lot of that work in China, having these Chinese companies build their batteries, build their EV systems, build their autonomous driving software solutions. And XPeng actually has a really, really good solution, potentially because they got it from one of Tesla's ex-employees who took a bunch of the code and a bunch of the data to China with him when he transitioned over and started working at XPeng. So that was a huge lawsuit and everything. But regardless of how they got it, they are one of the leaders in China in terms of autonomous technology. So it appears, at least to me and to Sam, the Electric Viking, that what VW might be doing is dialing back things, slowing things down in building in Germany and other countries, and starting to shift as much of their focus to China as possible, and depend on a lot of these Chinese companies to build the hardware and the software that will be in their vehicles. What that's going to do to the VW brand, I don't know, because effectively they'll become like a badge on somebody else's vehicles. What it's going to do to the German auto manufacturing industry is more definite. If this happens, it's going to be devastating to them. If VW moves even 50% of their auto manufacturing industry out of Germany and into China, that's going to have a devastating effect on their workers, of course, and on the German economy as a whole. So while this might be necessary for Volkswagen's survival, it is going to be very, very bad for Volkswagen as a German brand. And again, just to be clear here, this is all speculation and rumor. That the stake in these companies is not, but whether they're moving things to China or not is certainly rumor at this point. But the speculation seems relatively backed up by the data that's at hand at this point. And that brings me to my final point about VW, which also has implications for other auto manufacturers as well, and that is timing. A lot of what they're talking about for their new platforms, for their autonomy, all of that kind of stuff, new batteries, all of those things are in the 2027 through 2029 or 2030 time range. You're looking here at a company that has a massive amount of debt. You don't have that much time to make these kinds of changes. And especially if they start to make these changes, moving over to China and everything, abandoning a lot of their traditional roots in Germany, and then get to a point where they have to declare bankruptcy. Is Germany going to step in and support a company that's moving everything over to China? And in a similar fashion is GM, which is moving a lot of its stuff to China as well, particularly in EVs. If they have to declare bankruptcy, will the United States get pulled into bailing them out? Or will they say like, no, you guys are becoming a Chinese brand anyway, so why would we want to bail you out? So these companies, they're looking at making this transition, but this transition is going to take several years, and you can't stay in business if you have a mountain of debt and you're not selling enough vehicles in the meantime. So we've got VW and GM and the likes of Ford and other companies that are talking about dialing back their EV aspirations at the same time that several of them appear to be moving a lot of their work over to China and depending on them more and more. And that's all well and good, I guess, if that's what they want to do. They're companies, they can do what they want, but it is going to take time. It's going to take several years. And I don't think these companies have that many years. Internal combustion engine sales and profits are, they have an expiration date of a couple of years from now. They're going to start to decline severely. I know a lot of people in the United States are like, we'll never buy an EV. We're only going to buy gas cars. But the US by itself doesn't matter because this market itself is not big enough to support internal combustion engine construction at the scale that is needed to keep them profitable. So just as in a recent video, I said GM was a leading indicator for what's going on in the United States, VW is a leading indicator for what's going on in Germany. And neither of these leading indicators look any good to me, but of course I could be wrong. Let me know how wrong I am in the comments. As always, a huge thank you to everybody who watches this. If you do enjoy the video, please do like it so other people can find it more easily. And of course, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, please do consider subscribing for more of this kind of content. As always, a huge shout out to my Patreon patrons, my YouTube channel members, and of course, my ex-subscribers. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel in any way that you can. And of course, if you want to join any of the teams, just check out the links in the description. And if you're interested in a whole bunch of really cool merch, check out our merch store. Link is in the description. We have TeslaBot t-shirts, the Tesla meme t-shirt, success is a possible outcome, 4680 battery cells. All of that stuff is on t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, and on and on. So check it out. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, you can see how going shopping for a new Tesla, a solar roof, a Powerwall, or anything on Amazon helps out the channel. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.